Alright, what is going on, guys? My name is Leon Master. Welcome back to another Overwatch League video. And today, guys, the main topic we're talking about today is obviously the Dallas Fuel. What's next for the Dallas Fuel? We're going through this cycle again. It really reminds me of Season 1 all over again, where Decay is kind of like Effect, where Decay, he was on a break, and then basically he gets released, basically. And then Arrow gets released, and he brings someone else new at the end of the season. It's kind of like when Kai was gone, and then they brought Arrow in. It kind of feels like that all over again. So recently, with all the changes happening, with Hastro tweeting out what he's tweeting out, and what Dallas Fuel's looking like they're going through, I'm going to do a little bit of a fun video here. I'm going to go through things they could do and things they have to do in order to potentially find success. Now, obviously, I don't see what's on the inside. They obviously have a better idea of what brings them more success. Just as an outside fan, this is just more of a fun video to make. And who knows, we could probably bring up some ideas that would be fun to do. So before we go in, we're going to do some stuff that happened previously. You guys already know this, but I'm still going to go over it. Hastro tweeted out this: lots of fuel added to the fire today. We will make some major changes and get the Dallas Fuel back into the fray. Thank you for all of you who have the patience and working hard. Expect a lot of news for the team and sweeping changes. And then hours later, or an hour later, Dallas Fuel tweets this out: head coach Arrow's being released, and then obviously Young's going to be the interim head coach coming in, and also with Tikati being released. It's basically all that, and Young's being the head coach for a little bit. This was expected at some point. Arrow had really rough 2 seasons. When he first came into the Fuel, you have to admit, Stage 4 was really good for the Fuel back in Season 1. And Season 2 came around, they were doing good at the start, and then they dropped the ball. It's kind of like what happened in Season 3 this season. Dallas Fuel was doing pretty good at the start, and then it fell through in the middle. So Arrow had to be released at some point. I was really confused when Tikati was still on the roster, and when he even got on the roster. So honestly, I don't mind the Tikati one, but it seems like how we got released was kind of interesting, but we'll see that in a later week or two, whenever he pulls out a full twit longer. And then Young coming in as the head coach. I think this one's going to be interesting, and I already tweeted this out earlier today. Keep this in mind, Fuel fans. Young being a head coach and Arrow being gone instantly isn't going to make Dallas Fuel a better team. They're probably going to look the exact same coming into this weekend, going against the Justice for the Countdown Cup. I still think they're going to win that match, or make it at least very close. But Young has to adjust as a head coach. He needs to learn this. Also, a Vol Jin by his side. It's going to be a process for a couple of weeks or maybe months for the Fuel. I feel like they're definitely going to sign a head coach during the rest of the season. But Young should not be getting any hate the rest of the season. If they have really rough games, no one should be yelling at Young, I feel like. Yes, he even said that, hey, yell at me when we do bad. But if I see someone saying fire Young, I'm going to be insanely frustrated. Because Young is trying his best. He came into the season from Element Mystic, off some wins with Rush, and then just all that team was insanely good. I have faith for Young for the couple of months, weeks it's going to happen. Obviously, I don't expect majorly huge things to happen to the Fuel with his coaching style, but hey, I could be completely wrong. This next coming weekend, Dallas Fuel could be looking like a top-tier team, but I don't see that happening. That's all for the previous things that has happened. Now I'm going to talk about some changes that could be happening in the next upcoming seasons, and this season as well. To start it off, the easiest thing to do right now is to release some players, right? You need to release Trill, Unco, AKM, Harry Hook, and also on top of that, you're burning money keeping those guys. So just release them. Obviously, we know they're going to be away from November, but just go ahead and get rid of them now at least, so you guys have a solid 7. And I put this all in my notes, by the way, so I don't really forget anything. Pull a London Spitfire, from Season 1. They had a solid 7 or 8, whatever it was, and they did a lot of good work with that. Keep the roster you have right now and keep Closer and get rid of Trill, Unco, AKM, Harriet. Get rid of those guys, stop burning money, and then you have a solid 7 you can just keep focusing on. Those are the players who play Overwatch all the time, starting 6, and also Closer plays a lot as well. I think that should be a change they should be looking at this next upcoming week, because I feel like there's still more changes Hastro was hinting at, but we could be done with the changes he's meant as well. Those were a lot of changes. Decay, Tikati, and Arrow gone all in one day. Those were a lot of changes, but I still expect these players to be released as well. Now on to this next topic, coaches. They need to find a head coach, right? And I was really looking at all the head coaches I could really find that the Fuel could find, because there's not that many in NA contenders except for Zenith, who previously did Third Impact. But when I look at how Dallas Fuel is really wanting to win things, I'm looking for coaches like Rush, Krusty, and the top coaches. It's very hard to find those guys now because they got grabbed quick, and now it's time for other coaches to blow them up. So I found 2 coaches, potentially 3, but we'll definitely talk about this more in depth. So the first coach I want to talk about, I don't know how to say his name, but it's Noru or Noru. I don't know how to say his name, but he's currently coaching Gen G and previously coached Runaway in the past. Here's his results. So, as you can tell, he's had a good run. Recently, it's been kind of rough. I haven't watched it Gen G. I haven't really watched Career Contenders that much, but normally what I hear from the public opinion, he's pretty good at least. So I feel like if they brought him in, Dallas could be looking pretty good as well. So I think Noryu, I'm going to call him that because I don't know how to say his name, could be a potential candidate for taking the head coach position on the Dallas Fuel. And this other head coach I'm going to list, I've seen some people in my Discord say, but also I've seen other, statements as well that he wants to stay in Korea and work with this team, but I'm still going to put him out there as O2 Boss. I've said this coach numerous times. I've heard people say he wants to stay in Korea and stay and work with O2 Blast. I get that 100%, but I still want to throw him out there if that isn't true. So obviously, as you can tell, great track record. He had a little bit of a hiccup at one point. This is all of his tournaments he's been in, by the way, and he's been winning and been having good performances recently as well on O2 Blast. And he looks like the type of coach from his track record and just watching some O2 Blast before this. He looks like he can bring that to the Dallas Fuel like Rush and, Krusty and all them. Maybe. That's a big maybe. So I think O2 Boss could definitely be a good candidate coming into this, and I'll talk about O2 Boss a little bit more. And the third coach, I don't really see that happening with this third coach I'm listing, but Jungkook. He's an assistant coach on the San Francisco Shock who a lot of players, a lot of people who also make podcasts for the Overwatch League, Yiska, they all have high, opinions on Jungkook. So if Jungkook wants to get into that head coach position, maybe he can go over and, do Dallas Fuel. And we've also heard Jungkook was kind of like the head coach in Team USA. There's a lot of things talking about here of Jungkook, but I feel like it's going to be very hard for Shock to actually get rid of him unless Dallas Fuel spends some big bucks on Jungkook, and then you have a coaching staff of Jungkook, Young, and Vol'jin. But I feel like all the three coaches I listed, I think O2 Boss, potentially Noryu, that's probably the highest bet maybe, and then Jungkook, I think that's the lowest one, but there's definitely still a chance with these three coaches I listed, but I feel like they should be looking at Korea Contenders for coaches. I've seen Fuel fans even say this. There's not that many good coaches in NA Contenders as well as what I've seen at least. Now on to the next thing. I put a little tab here for Season 3 and Season 4. We're on to Season 4 now. So Season 4 comes in, and maybe even this would happen before Season 4, but the first note I wrote down here is release TaZMo. We've seen numerous times that TaZMo may not be the best GM. He seems like he's not really doing his job that much, is what it seems like, looking at other GMs, and, a big name one could be Albert from Florida Mayhem. He's actually been a really good GM, it seems like, for the Florida Mayhem. And TaZMo, nothing much really came out of TaZMo. Every time we hear about TaZMo, it's not the greatest stuff. So I feel like if TaZMo goes, that also really helps the Dallas Fuel. For a new GM, I honestly couldn't find a solution for this. You know me, if you've been here for a while, I normally find a solution after I say release this or do whatever. I couldn't really find a GM, so this other thing goes to O2 Boss as well. If you look at O2 Boss on his O2 Blast thing, he's also a head coach and a GM. So I feel like that could also bring a lot to the Dallas Fuel if he was a GM as well, helping find those players, taking care of those players, and also being a head coach. It's going to be rough on him, but we've seen other coaches do this before, like DPay. DPay is also the GM and also the head coach. I feel like O2 Boss would just be great on the Fuel. And also another note I wrote down, and I saw this on my Discord too. I don't know who you are, I can't find your name anymore, but you honestly had, a good take. And this take he had, and I also agree with that, keep this in mind, if they get O2 Boss, they can get a core, and the core I'm talking about here is Mandu and Myeonbong for Season 4. Mandu is sitting on the bench for NYXL, and also Myeonbong most likely is going to get sold this next season for the Overwatch League, so you have a core of O2 Boss, Mandu, and Myeonbong. I think that's great. If we've seen from previous things, with Paris Eternal was a big example, you had their coaching staff and also Sparkle and XZ, and I think Hanbin as well. They had a core. They brought in a core, and they made Paris it's insanely top tier team. Obviously, this isn't like DPS or tanks, it's supports, but I feel like this would still be a great turn for the Dallas Fuel if they got a core like O2 Boss, Mandu, and Myeonbong. Obviously, O2 Boss has not worked with these guys recently, but he's worked with Mandu and Myeonbong previously. Now, if these other topics I'm going to talk about, I'm really leaving it up for the staff on this because they do a good job on this. Obviously, pickups, that's on to them, and trades, that's on to them. I can't really think of any trades they could do. One that popped up in my head that's obviously never going to happen is like maybe a Gamsu Profit trade. That's just going out of nowhere, just some random one I threw out there. It's never going to happen, but if it does, I wouldn't be surprised. Dallas traded OG for Decay. No one expected that for both ends, so I'll leave that up for them. And when it comes to hit scan replacements for Decay, because now they're set on a high standard now. Kind of like LA Gladiators when they had Fisher and he left. Gladiators was set to a high standard. And now that Decay's gone, Dallas Fuel is now set to a high standard for their hit scan player. I couldn't really find insanely good players like Decay, But the ones I wrote down was like Merit from Runaway and also Perfect from T1. Those are the only ones I could find. But if Dallas Fuel could do a trade somewhere with someone in the league, I think that'll be their best bet. And also just another thing with the Dallas Fuel, I think the starting six they have is actually potentially good. Yes, that sounds weird. I think when I look at this roster, it's been one of the best rosters they've had, especially the starting six. Doha, Onigod, Gamsu, Note, Crimson, Paintbrush. I feel like under a new coach like O2, like Junkbunk, or NoRU, I feel like they could definitely be insanely good and just turn those players around to be some top tier players. I have faith in Paintbrush doing good. He's not been doing that good recently. I think Crimzo has so much potential, and the same thing goes for Gamsu and Note, and also Doha and Onigod. I think those guys have a lot of potential. We just haven't been able to see it because of the coaching staff Dallas Fuel lacks. So I feel like when they bring new coaches in, that I really hope they find this next couple of months or weeks, but we'll leave that up for them. Anyways, also, I made a Photoshop thing of what the roster could look like if the things I've said. Obviously, I just do this for fun, but here it is right here. You have Merit, you have Myeonbong, Mandu. It looks like a decent roster, but, it becomes a good roster when you have a good coaching staff. So hopefully everything that happens behind the scenes gets sorted out. They get a new GM, new coaching staff. I feel like majority of it is a new coaching staff. They need new staff, and I feel like they could definitely do really good with the roster they have right now in general. Yes, there could be upgrades, but the roster they have right now is actually decent and has potential. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. What is some of your guys' stuff that you would like to say down below about Dallas Fuel, what they could do? And also, be realistic. I've seen some comments be completely wild and unrealistic about, like, yeah, they'll buy Krusty and, buy Mano, get Jonak. I don't think you guys know how hard that is. Some teams can deny buying those players and also getting rid of those coaches. You have to be a little bit realistic here. That's why I said Junkbunk would be a really hard one to get, but I'm just throwing it out there. But I don't see it happening. Maybe the O2 Boston or you, that has potential. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to join my Discord down below. Also, for my Twitter and my Twitch. And don't forget to hit that bell. And don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. And I'll see you guys on the next one.